Countdown is on. Early voting begins on Saturday. And the next mayor will need to address public safety and poverty head on. Some advocates say these are not separate issues. They're deeply linked because many low-income neighborhoods often have higher crime rates. Our guest on this Sunday, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez. What he says about drug and gun trafficking rings operating out of luxury apartment buildings and the urgent need to protect New Yorkers from gangs. Plus, Christine Quinn also joins us in studio. The CEO of Quinn has recommendations for the next mayor. And later, we switch gears to highlight a special honor for In Focus.
The Emmy goes to In Focus, the discovery and reburial of Sandy Wills. Spectrum News, New York 1.
For the first time in nearly 10 years, our public affairs program won an Emmy for our Veterans Day special report last year about the search and reburial of my Civil War grandfather, Sandy Wills. We can't wait to tell you all about it. We have a packed show, but first, back to the election. Now down to the wire. Let's take a closer look at the candidate's vision for a safer city. Here's Dean Meminger.
Front-runner and Democratic nominee for mayor Zohran Mamdani says he's facing the issues causing crime head-on.
There is no room for gun violence in this borough or anywhere in this city.
Mamdani says he wants to protect New Yorkers by creating a Department of Community Safety with a budget of $1 billion. Among multiple responsibilities, it would increase funding for the crisis management system. This is a community-based approach that aims to stop gun violence between young people. Mamdani is also calling for more assistance for the mentally ill and homeless, as well as subway safety teams. He says the goal is to free up cops to patrol more and investigate crimes.
What we have ended up with is police officers responding to 200,000 mental health calls a year, and that cannot be separated from the fact that response times have increased by 20% over the last few years.
Mayor Eric Adams, who is a retired NYPD captain, has consistently pushed the slogan, "Public safety is the prerequisite for prosperity in the city." As the incumbent, he has the advantage of physically showing how he responds to crime. In recent weeks, he said he surged 1,000 additional cops into the Bronx to combat an increase in shootings and murders. His police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, has pushed quality of life teams across the city to respond to complaints from residents.
I walk these streets. I patrol these streets. I live in this community. I know what we have gone through, and I know we can't go backwards.
Under Mayor Adams, murders are down 17% so far this year compared to last year during the same time period, and shootings are down 15%. Overall, major crime down about 4%. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo is presenting himself as a law and order man. If elected, he says his first priority would be safety, promising to increase the NYPD by 5,000 cops.
Because we are at one of the lowest levels of police officer staffing since the 90s. And we know that more police are part of the solution.
Cuomo also says under his leadership, more NYPD and MTA officers would patrol the subway system. And Republican Curtis Sliwa is also pushing fighting crime at the top of his agenda. He founded the Citizen Patrol, Guardian Angels, back in 1979, and says he won't hesitate to lock up all criminals.
I'm the street guy. I'm the proud Republican running on the law and order platform, the quality of life platform. And we're not just going to crack down on the gangbangers and all the gunslingers and drug dealers. We're going to make sure that we got programs to keep them out of harm's way.
A lot of promises from all of the candidates to make the city safer if they get the job at City Hall. All also pushing social service programs to help people avoid getting involved in criminal activity.
That's Dean Meminger reporting for us on this Sunday. Let's bring in our first guest, Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, thanks for making the time. You know, we've had your colleagues, Queens DA Melinda Katz recently, and Bronx DA Darcel Clark, and we're so glad you're here because New Yorkers are very concerned about public safety, especially as it relates to young people getting their hands on guns. Tell us about your office's intervention programs for at-risk youth.
Well, the good news, right, we're in October now, and the the most violent crime in our city is way down. Shootings are down in New York City by 20%. Brooklyn has continuously led in reduction of shooting violence. It's been down every year since 2020. Knock on wood, as we sit here today, we have a real chance in the county to have the safest year in recorded history. The fewest number of shooting incidents ever, fewest number of shooting victims ever, and the fewest number of people ever killed on our streets. And so it's a lot of good news. And in Brooklyn, I think part of that secret sauce is the way that we go about doing the work at the DA's office. We prosecute the cases aggressively, especially shooters and people who are, the most violent offenders. But the office has programs that do prevention. And I think that many DA's offices across the country had never focused on prevention and just the prosecution. In Brooklyn, we're also spending a lot of time working with really endangered young men, particularly, who we think are most likely to get involved in gang and gun violence. And we focus in on them so that they don't become statistics as either incarcerated defendants or as people who've been shot in our city.
You mentioned gangs. Your office has also broken up drug and gun trafficking rings. We have a photo with you with the NYPD standing in front of a table with lots of guns that have been confiscated. And some of these weapons, as you pointed out during a recent press conference, are being sold out of luxury apartment buildings like in Diker Heights. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I was with the police commissioner just about a week and a half ago, breaking up a drug distribution ring where they were also casually selling guns. We've talked about this before. We have to get these guns off our streets. They are endangering us, and they all mostly come from down south. And so what we've been doing is focusing in on trafficking, right? Part of reducing gun violence in the county is dealing with the supply that's coming in from our southern neighbors.
Right, that iron pipeline, right?
Yeah, and we've been very successful.
Yeah.
Again, just minimizing the guns that are available. We have other options. We have gun buybacks. Just one church in Bed-Stuy last year, we received over 200 guns. Right. So we're preventing people from using those guns from committing robberies and suicides and shooting people. It's all good ways of doing it. So we're going to do enforcement, and then we're going to work with the community to get these guns off our streets.
Gotcha. Let's pivot to Brooklyn's Conviction Review Unit. 41 people exonerated over the last decade. The latest in July, Brian Kendall from Brooklyn. He spent 37 years behind bars for a murder he did not commit. These cases are very emotional for you. You make sure that every single one has a complete report. Tell us more.
Yeah, these are heartbreaking cases. We've convicted innocent people over the years. These mistakes happen. They really undermine public confidence in our justice system. The individuals who are wrongfully convicted are harmed, their families harmed, and the victims and the family members of the person who has been murdered in these homicides, they think the case is solved to learn that it hadn't been solved. So these are really troubling. The reason this work is so important is because the duty of a prosecutor is to make sure that guilty people are convicted, but innocent people are not. And so going back and fixing and trying to repair the damage that has happened is so important. And it's important for our jurors.
You have 81 new assistant district attorneys. I want to show the photo really quickly. The biggest class in Brooklyn in many years. Yeah. Tell us your message to these ADAs.
Do justice. Understand that the work of the DA's office is about keeping our community safe in partnership with community, that we have to make sure that our ADAs understand that their job is not to punish people, but to hold them accountable. And if we do it working with our community partners, we're going to do a great job. Brooklyn is really having a renaissance in terms of safety. I travel around the community, and I can tell you now that people feel that we've really turn the tide in the county in terms of violence.
Okay, we appreciate you coming in. Really appreciate it. Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez. When we come back, we move from public safety to poverty and the high cost of living here in New York City. Advocates say the next mayor will have a massive challenge on his hands. We'll be right back. The next mayor of New York City will face deep-seated problems that contribute to food shortages and the lack of affordable housing and health care. Advocates say that City Hall needs fresh ideas, not quick fixes. We're pleased to welcome back to In Focus a familiar face, Christine Quinn. She's the president and CEO of WIN, which is the city's largest provider of shelter, social services, and supportive housing for homeless families. And the organization just released new recommendations for the next mayor, and Christine is here to spell it all out for us. Good to see you again, girl.
Thank you, thank you.
We're like old friends. So
yeah, absolutely.
I could call you girl.
Exactly.
So
honey.
listen, I want to tell our viewers, I know they know, you were the first woman city council speaker from 2006 until 2013, and that factors into this whole equation because you know of which you speak. And your top recommendation to the next mayor is to defend New York's right to shelter, meaning you want to see an end to limits on shelter stays. Explain why.
Yeah, you know, so in New York City, we're one of the few jurisdictions where there's a right to shelter. It's a result of the Callahan decision in the late 80s, early 90s. And during the Adams administration, when that had to be renewed, the consent decree, they scaled some of the rights back. The idea of shelter is you are in it getting services until you can thrive in permanent housing. You don't want to say to people, 30 days or you're out. If somebody's a domestic violence survivor, if they're struggling with mental health, 30 days is nothing. Think of how long, if you're not in that situation, it takes to get a new job or to find an apartment. Let's take that limit out. Let's also say that folks who are here, who are immigrants of whatever their status, they should be able to get shelter too. You know, right now, there are so many children in shelter, it could fill Madison Square Garden twice. And we're going to kick those people out and their mothers and fathers after 2 months. That's not enough time to stabilize.
Okay, and your next recommendation, drop the lawsuit and reverse Adams' policies that undermine city FPWA.
Yep.
And tell our viewers what that is.
Which stands for something that I can't remember, is the city's voucher program.
Right.
And how that works, it's like Section 8. A lot of people know that. When you leave shelter, you pay 30% of your income towards your rent. The voucher pays the rest. It is the most effective way to move folks out of shelter and not have them return, which is key. But Mayor Adams said if you're a longtime user of a voucher, 5 years, so you haven't gotten so much money in your income that you've priced out of it, you have to pay an increase of 33% of your income every month to rent. That is causing people to get evicted, which sends them back to shelter. And you know what? If you're a night in permanent housing with a voucher, it's $72 a night. If you're at a WIN shelter, it's close to $300 a night. Do the math. It's not just humane, it's better for the taxpayers.
And let's just say for our viewers, FPWA is short for the City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Supplement.
There you go. There
okay,
you go.
Your next recommendation, expand direct cash programs to support families. Why do you want the next mayor to expand these programs?
So these programs are incredibly effective. We have seen, high-level academic studies all across the country, including New York, show the difference that it makes. And it's even more important now with the looming federal cuts. So how it works is you give a cash allocation, for example, to a pregnant woman who is a low-income pregnant woman for the first 5 years of her child's life. We have seen documented that extra amount of money helps people move out of poverty, reduces childhood poverty. Now, some people are cynically going to say, well, if you just give people money, it doesn't work that way. The facts prove it out. If you give that extra bit of help, it helps somebody get childcare, get even more nutritious food, get the MetroCard for the first 2 weeks of work that they don't get paid for right away, get the uniform for the job that otherwise they might lose the job. It is effective. We've seen Governor Hochul start it. She calls it baby bucks. We've seen the city council put money in. It's making a difference, reducing childhood poverty in New York City. And the next mayor has a unique opportunity to dream bigger and to deliver a more effective government for homeless children and homeless families.
And for our viewers who want to see all of the recommendations, you can visit the WIN website. Christine Quinn, President and CEO of WIN.
Thank you.
See you again, always. In Focus continues right after this. Thanks for staying with us as we talk about the upcoming election. Joining us now is Jennifer Jones Austin, CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, or FPWA. That's an anti-poverty group. And just days ago, this nonprofit put out this report, True Cost of Economic Security, Policy Implications for New York City. Jennifer, always good to see you, my friend.
Always good to be with you.
Yeah, and you know, this report, I read it, it is deep. And it finds that nearly 2/3 of New Yorkers cannot make ends meet. We've been reporting that. But here's what was different from what we typically report. It cuts across all races and boroughs.
Absolutely cuts across all races and boroughs. It cuts across like ethnicity, right? You know, we look at this and we see that it's not just black and brown persons who are struggling. White persons in New York City are struggling. What it tells us is that the measures that we've been using don't see everybody. It tells us that older people are struggling. It tells us that people with families and individuals, everybody's struggling.
Everybody, it's cutting across the board. So you've been front and center at so many forums and debates leading up to this election. How are the candidates, in your view, how do they fare on affordability? Because they'll all start out saying affordability, you know, all the polls show affordability. But what do you make of their solutions?
So my greatest concern is that they are looking at these issues as kind of one-off. Oh, let's figure out how we have universal child care, or let's figure out what we do about housing. And what they're not appreciating is that the gap, when we look at what people need to meet their daily needs, plan and save for their future, be it retirement or, you know, for their children's future, to weather an economic storm, a car breaks down and they've got to decide between paying their rent and paying to get the car fixed so they can go to work. When we look at all of these costs and we look at the resources, what it tells us that on average in New York City, the gap is about $40,000. When you look at families with children, it's about $50,000. So if you focus on child care alone, that's not closing the gap alone. If you focus on housing, it's not going to close the gap. And frankly, if you do things, you have to be very careful about universal child care. If you give everybody $25,000, $30,000, what might result is the people who actually don't need that for child care, they've not got more resources, they've got more wealth, which actually then can push up the cost of things. And so what I'm seeing is people need to first and foremost understand it's not just an affordability issue, it is economic security. People with resources don't have to worry about the car breaking down. They live economically secure. We've got to focus on that and then build the policy solutions that match the problem.
I want to dig into the solutions because you're solution oriented. Everybody knows you. The report calls for a comprehensive suite of policy interventions. And like you said, that no single solution will suffice. As a native New Yorker, every administration in our lifetime, we're in the same age range. They always have this big, here's what we're going to do about this crisis, this crisis, this crisis. And then when the next administration comes, we're back to square one. So what does it take to have meaningful change?
So I think first and foremost, we have to look at resources. We have to appreciate that when you look at New York City's lowest income, low and low to middle income people have not fared well over the last several years when it comes to an increase in wages, right? We may have the highest wage or one of the highest wages in the country right now at a little better than $16, but it's still not enough. We don't have the capacity to build wealth in this city the way that we once did. Not everybody can buy a home. These are the resources that are needed. So you have to look at wages, you have to look at wealth. What are the things that keep people from attaining wealth? Do you know that if you get income supports, like, food supports, you may not be able to have more than like $300 to $500 in savings? How are you ever going to get ahead?
Right.
So you have to look at wages, wealth, income supports, housing, childcare, all of that, and build packages that are responsive to the needs.
Right. Your report finds that an annual income is needed of at least $71,000 to make it in this
For an individual.
And that's not even a married couple.
Right.
$71,000. Let's quickly talk about how the federal government fits into this equation. Your focus is policy and social justice, and a lot of people are falling through the cracks, especially with all that's happening in Washington and this give and take with funding. What are you seeing?
I'm seeing what I call willful, intentional, structural economic deprivation. That what the federal government is seeking to do at this moment is to make sure that, with the advancements that were made with DEI, more and more people of color, Black women, most educated segment of our society, getting ahead and, and growing the ability, to build wealth in their families, they want to pull that back. And so what do? You start cutting the resources that people actually need to get ahead. You cut food supports, you cut Medicaid, you cap student loans for college and for graduation. You do these things to keep those people who were actually beginning to get ahead from getting there. You kind of starve them, and then you can suppress low and middle class building. The problem is, though, that they don't understand that this is not just a New York City issue. It's not just a Black and brown issue. There are many people who are going to be impacted by this, independent of race.
Potentially long term. Jennifer Jones-Austin of FPWA, always great to see you.
Always good to be here.
And now, our final focus. We want to take a moment to celebrate a very special honor.
The Emmy goes to In Focus, the discovery and reburial of Sandy Wills. Spectrum News, New York 1.
That's our very own Errol Lewis announcing the first ever Emmy win for In Focus. You may recall our special Veterans Day report about my Civil War veteran grandfather, Sandy Wills, who was buried in an unmarked grave on a former slave plantation for 135 years. With the help of an archaeology team, Sandy's remains were positively identified, and last year, we reburied this American hero with full military honors in a military cemetery in Memphis. And there are simply no words that can ever express how much this honor means to me and my family. Thanks so much for watching In Focus. I'm Cheryl Wills. We appreciate you spending your Sunday with us. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. To keep up with important issues impacting our communities and hear more conversations with the people who are shaping the future, subscribe to our channel. You can also download our app or find Spectrum News on your TV for balanced, in-depth political coverage and more. We'll see you there.